Meeting is being recorded.
Let me.
Richard, you're still on mute. You're not on mute, rather.
I'm going to jump off and get back on.
Okay.
Hey, while he's off, can someone, this is Bob Easterbrook speaking, what constitutes a play in the wheel? Is it a set of degrees? I mean, when they were looking at his car, they obviously didn't take it for a ride. Is there a certain amount of play in the steering wheel, degrees or whatever? I mean, this was 50 years ago, but it was like driving a flexible flyer. You know, I mean, it was all over the road.
Well, mine has never been adjusted as far as I know from new in 61. So when I drove it, probably when I had it on the road, probably 80,000 miles before I started the restoration. So, you know, I don't know how much it is, but I don't know.
So Bob Abbott, what do you recommend for adjusting, taking any slop out of the steering wheels?
Well, you're never going to get it all out, to my knowledge, because it's an old technology steering box, and that Bishop peg is just not. It can't be that tight. So you're going to have some play. The adjustment is on the peg part of it, and the adjusting screw actually drives it down into the gears a little farther, so that the tolerance is tighter. The problem is it's set up so that right in the middle, it's a little tighter anyhow. That's straight ahead. That's how they machined it originally. And if you tighten it just a little bit too much, it gets stuck in the middle position or the straight ahead position. And it's hard to get it off that position. You'll feel it in the steering wheel all the time. So the best thing I've been able to do is take out as much play as you can.
This meeting is being recorded.
Richard, that's you again.
Yep. I don't know what's going on.
Well, Richard, you're on twice. There you go. Yeah, you shut off Richard John. That was better.
That's me.
Yeah. Whenever you speak. So go ahead, Bob.
So I just use cord head grease. It's made by John Deere. So you can buy it at any John Deere factory. It comes in a cartridge like regular chassis lube grease does, and you can put it in a grease gun with a hose on the end of it and squeeze it in there. And it helps to take some of it out, but more importantly, it doesn't leak out like 30-weight oil will.
So Bob, any tricks you have up in Canada for taking slop out of steering boxes on big Healey's?
Oh no, Bob is quite correct with with that dimple, if you like, in the middle. If you tighten the screw down just a hair too much, it'll bind right in the middle spot. But the adjustment, if you loosen the lock nuts and then turn the slotted screw, or I don't know, 1/10 of a turn, it will make a huge difference to the amount of play in the steering wheel. And then we use cornhead grease and have done for years.
How much play would you consider is what you think it could be or should be?
If you've got a standard size wheel, then at the outside edge, if you've got 1 inch, that's about about normal.
Yeah, it's nowhere near that. I don't think. It's probably, I want to say, 1/4 to 1/2 inch.
Pretty good.
So you got a great wheel, Bob. Rich, sorry.
What do you folks think about the AH spares? They sell a newer configuration that's been remachined so that all throughout the the turn of the wheel, the adjustment is supposed to be the same. Have you heard about that? And what do you know about it?
So anyone have an experience with installing new boxes? Because I know a number of the suppliers in the UK have those. Dennis Welch's does. I believe Head4Heelys has them as well. Bob Ewell, is that correct?
Yeah, and I think I'm correct in saying that they're all the same. They're the same piece.
Okay.
But they work very well. But even so, you still get a little bit of play in them.
And it's several $1,000s too, correct?
Oh yeah.
So for your quarter to half an inch, Rich, doesn't sound like that's a good financial proposition.
Yeah, no, I know it's not an inch, but I'll have to go and measure it and see what it is.
Rich, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just a hunch. I had an old 61 Falcon, and the thing would go like crazy all over the place. And it wasn't the steering wheel. It was the ball joints were completely wore out. In other words, the steering wheel was doing its job. It was moving the levers and I was supposed to, but the tire itself was wore out because the ball joints were wore out. And what you do is, you've probably done this, is you jack it up and you should not be able to shake the tire too much.
No, they're all the ball joints, everything is new. When I,
Okay.
Yeah, he's got a concourse restoration, a
new.
gold concourse restored car.
So it's a steering wheel. Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Well, it's the steering box, not the steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob Nicholson said, look, don't worry about it. It's not that much. So
It's not broke, don't fix it,
I guess I've just gotten used to modern cars where
Rich, I run into that all the time. People say, oh, I've got too much play and I'm always busy. I'm milking a cow going down the road, and it's just a 60-year-old car and the technology that was available then. And
Yeah.
today you put your hand on the middle of your steering wheel and 60 miles later you haven't moved it. But
right.
it's just a different, it's if you have a quarter to a half an inch of play,
Yeah.
you are better off than 90% of the cars I've ever had.
Okay.
In my possession.
You've already got Concourse Gold, so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
No,
He's looking for that half point.
The hell
What are you
with
going?
a half
How comfortable I
point.
feel driving it, right?
Well, didn't you get 965? No, you got 995 or something, Rich? 993?
93.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I've already fixed two half-point deductions already.
Okay.
They
Well,
were
you're not going to go
pretty
through Concourse again, are you? You sold your Concourse tires.
Yes, I did. But I'm almost up to 500 miles now, Pete.
On the new ones? Good.
Get those 5 points back.
Okay. Any other questions, Rich?
No, that's it for right now.
Okay. Great. Hi, Jim Constantine. I see you joined us.
Hi, Pete. Yep,
Um,
I'm here, ready to go.
Great. So, Jim has a question. Now, this is on your 67 BJ8 as it relates to replacing the glass in his windscreen. So he can get an aftermarket one from Moss for $185, and the triplex there is for $500. I think what your question is, does anyone have any experience with using either of those aftermarket glass and
I
or
do.
the triplex?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I bought the aftermarket and it's cracked.
Already.
Yeah, already. There's a crack running right up the right, about that, 8 inches in from the right side, goes straight
think-
up.
You think it was because
I
of
don't know whether
installation?
that was-
Yeah, that's the question. Do you think it was installation?
I have no idea why. I had very professional people that restored antique cars to mint condition, put it in. But they said it was hard. It was a hard fit because it wasn't just perfect. And my guess is there were some pressures there, and you go over a bump and it cracked it. So
Well.
I'm kind of waiting to have it exchanged or have it replaced. but I don't think I want to replace it with what I got.
Well, I got a question. So I'm not sure if it's the same in Vermont, but in Massachusetts, glass is non-deductible. And it's free. Do we know if you are Jim's in Massachusetts, will our insurance companies replace glass on our cars? Does anyone know?
I think they changed the deductible recently
Did they?
in the last year or so. Because
Okay.
too many people were getting it for free.
Okay. Is that just classic cars or is that even our daily drivers, Rick?
Daily drivers.
Okay. Okay.
I agree with Alden on the choice of glass. My experience recently wasn't with a BJ8, which so you've got a curved windscreen on a BJ8. I was dealing with a BJ7, and to try to save somebody some money, we bought the Moss brand or inexpensive windshield. Put 3 different windshields in the car, and I'd come back either the next day or Monday morning without moving the car, and they were cracked.
Wow.
Now Moss replaced all 3 of them, no charge. They even paid the shipping on them when they sent me the new ones. And I finally just told them, don't bother, Stu. Send me the triplex, and we put that in, and it was fine. Using the exact same moldings or spacers, and the exact same weather seals, in all 3 situations, or 4 situations. We put that windshield in the 4th time, and it worked fine.
So Bob, is glass replacement a DIY, or should I take it to an auto glass place to have them replace the windshield?
Well, you're gonna have to find an auto repair place that's not one of the glass specialty places of today.
Okay.
Because today they're just,
Yeah,
they show up with a hot knife and they cut the old one out and they glue the new one in and put the chrome back on, and they're done. And these don't go together that way. So you're gonna have to find somebody that doing or done some antique cars with frames that come apart and have to be put back together. And that can be difficult. Your typical safe light glass isn't going to be able to do it for you.
okay.
So Bob, is that a job you're interested in doing or not?
I just don't have the time to get into it right now, especially if it's never been taken apart, because those screws can be a bear, just an absolute bear on those little corner brackets.
I can only speak about Healey, but I replaced my glass in Healey, and I broke the first one because you have to compress the side rails in, and it cracked. And what I found is I had to mark the center of the glass and the center of the frame, make sure those 2 were right before I started compressing the sides in. Otherwise, it'll crack if it's not centered.
About 6 years ago, I got a crack in my BJ7 glass driving on Route 495, and I was insured by Haggerty, and Haggerty paid for new glass, and I chose to install it myself, and they actually gave me some money to do it myself. It wasn't terribly hard, but as Bob says, the corner screws, they've been there for 50 years, and they don't want to move, and it's easy to strip them, or strip the heads at least. The triplex glass is made by Pilkington. And if you go online, you can and look up Pilkington, you will find a number of dealers. And I suspect that they would be less expensive than Payne Moss.
How do you spell that?
Pilkington. And the triplex glasses we had, unfortunately, in not too far from where I am and Bob, we had a guy that distributed all classic car windshields, and was one of the, he regularly distributed Healy windshields. Unfortunately, he sold the business and they're not available anymore. They were, I think I paid around 300 and when Moss was looking for 500 for the same
Mhm.
glass. So if you can find yourself a local Pilkington dealer, you might be able to get that price a little bit more reasonable than Moss is going to pay. And
Okay,
fortunately, shipping is on a windshield is really expensive.
right.
So I'm sharing my screen. So this is on our website. So there's this place that somebody recommended earlier in Attleboro, Mass. Jim.
Okay, good.
Anawan Glass and Mirror in Attleboro. Ernie Connor, I know you're on the call. Do you have any experience with them?
No, I've never used them. I did the one on the Bugeye. It was pretty well documented by Pat that we broke the first one. That was the original glass. But I bought the glass from Moss, I believe it was. Came and we fit that and it's fine. We just tweaked it too much the first time and cracked it. We were a little bit more careful the second time. But the one from Moss has been fine. It's not triple X.
But it sounds like, Jim, what Rick Neville's suggestion about find that Pilkington distributor
Right.
maybe a good way to go,
Yeah,
because obviously it
that's-
sounds like on the curved glass, others
Right.
have had experiences with them breaking on the aftermarket stuff. Because
Yeah, that
obviously
was-
what
that was-
Ernie has on his Bugeye is flat glass.
Right.
So maybe the curved glass may be a little
Yeah.
more challenging.
Yeah, that was I was going to use that approach. I was going to look for a distributor and see if I could get it for less.
Well, this place is in Attleboro, and that's not too far from you, Jim.
Yeah, and the shipping I think is over $100.
Okay.
One thing you might want to check into is I have a Land Rover 4, an LR4, and they put Pinkeltons in the Land Rover. So maybe the Land Rover dealer can give you some information on who they have installed the Pinkelton glass on. But they come with the LR4s, the newer LR4s.
Okay.
Is an LR4, is that a modern Land Rover, Mike?
Yeah,
know Land
yeah,
Rover.
it's a modern Land Rover, but it might be a source for the Pinkelton product because it's
Yep.
the English glass that they use.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mike.
And then Jim, you also had a question regarding bleeding screws and for your brakes. I know Ernie Connor's got some questions regarding brake bleeding. So maybe when we switch to bleeding brakes.
Okay.
So Jim, you want to give us kind of what your question is there regarding bleeding, the bleeder
I just
screws?
I want to switch out the bleeder screws for the speed bleeders. That's all. I just want to replace the existing bleeder valves with the speed bleeders.
And is there, so you're asking for the size, the thread, the diameter and that sort of thing? This is for the BJ8 again, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Anyone have experience with speed bleeders? I do not.
Okay.
So Jim, what's a speed bleeder?
Well, it's got a little valve in it. So when you bleed your brakes, you open the valve, step on the brake pedal till the bubble air comes out, and then when you let up, the valve closes, so you don't have to put the jar with
brake fluid,
brake fluid, and all of that. I mean, you do have to have a jar to catch the fluid that comes out, but you don't have to have a hose to keep that a continuous contact with the fluid.
So does anyone have experience with speed bleeders on Healey's?
Yeah, I have them on my car. Let me quickly look up. I think it's 3/16 to 3/8 24. Hold on a second.
So you get them on the Sprite or the BJ7?
Both.
Okay. And you've been pleased with those, Rick?
Very happy. Except I don't bother with the can. I just let it go right into the floor and then I slop it up.
Yeah.
You have Elaine come out and clean it up for you?
That'll be the day.
Okay.
Give me a couple of seconds and I'll,
Okay, because
Come up
I
with
did,
something.
I did try to get that information. I put in speed bleeders and it gives you all different kind of distributors. But it didn't,
the size is 3/8 by 24.
okay, thank you.
Do you know, Rick, where you got yours?
I got them on eBay. I think they also sell them on Amazon. And
Yeah, there were quite a few distributors.
yeah,
Yeah.
if
Okay.
you look for the speed bleeder size 3/8 by 24,
Yep,
that should do it. I got a
Okay.
pack number you can try to Google and see. Is Well, there's three different ones that I'm seeing here. The front bleed is SB 3824L. And the rears SB 3824 HD.
okay. Very good, thank you, Rick.
No problem. I
Yep.
hope they work.
And you said
Okay.
you did
Go
it on your
ahead.
Sprite too? Are they different on Sprites front and rear too?
I can't, it was so long ago, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay, well.
Problem I've run into with the bleeders on both the Spitfire and the Bugeye on the back brakes is the fitting is metric. I have to use a metric wrench to bleed the brakes because they're aftermarket. So I don't know whether, I think they're made in India, which is pretty common. And so you may run into that if you try and change the onto Speedi bleeds.
Okay. All of the on mine, it's all original, so I probably won't have any problems with the Indian threads.
That's true, but you may have a challenge getting them off. If you got original bleeders on there, have you bled the brakes?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I've opened and closed, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I replaced the fuel pump, and there's the little screws that go into the base of the pump and then extend through the bracket. They're threaded on both ends, and those are no longer available. I did take an original bolt with me to the hardware store. I found both a nut and a bolt that would fit exactly. Tried to put it in, and it won't fit. But that British fine thread, I think, is the problem. And to get the bolt from Moss was $2.29 for one bolt, and they don't take orders under $10. So I figured a workaround and did get. I had to put in a couple of washers as spacer to get it tight up against the bracket, but it's in and it's working.
Well, that's good. So Ernie's been having some challenges with getting a hard brake pedal on his Sprite. I remember he came over to my house the other day and tested the one's my Sprite and said it, had a much tighter one. And so Ernie, I know you've bled them multiple times, and you're really looking for some advice on how to get maybe there must still be some air in there one way or the other. And so this is on a fairly newly restored Bugeye Sprite. They've
always been like this. I've never been comfortable with the way they felt. They always stop the car, but I'm at the point where I have to push the pedal till it gets hard to trigger the brake lights. I've used a Mighty Vac. I've bled them into a jar of fluid. I'm using DOT5. I just did the ones on the TD I'm restoring, and I had a leak. I replaced the part that was leaking, and with the half hour, I had a nice hard pedal. Same thing with my Spitfire, but with the Bugeye, I just can't get a hard pedal.
Now, do you have disc brakes in the front on that, Ernie, and drums in the rear?
I have brakes on the front and the newer brake and backing plates on the rear. And it's a new master, everything's new. It's not new, it's a re-sleeved master cylinder. I had a guy out in San Francisco, his name escapes me right now, and he re-sleeved it for me. And I just can't get a firm pedal.
Which master cylinder did you use, Ernie? Did you use the standard one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Well, he re-sleeved it. He
Yeah,
resized it.
it's not the resleeving. There's a different bore size for the
Yeah.
It's 7/8, isn't it?
Yes, he did that. That's the reason I said it. He resized it when he bought it. This
Okay.
is, I wish I could think of the guy's name.
Gerard
Gerard.
Schrat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he knows
Yes.
what he's doing.
He does.
How about fluid? Are you using silicone or using?
Yes. Use a silicone.
That will give you a soft pedal, especially on a Bugeye. It'll be a lot softer than the standard one.
It's soft. Oh,
Okay. Now
it's
yours is.
soft.
Go ahead.
But I've heard silicone, you don't get the same type pedal they do with .4. I have heard that as well.
Yeah, I have read that, but again, I've got it. You know, I've used it in all three of my systems.
Yeah.
And haven't driven the TD yet. But if I go out there now, I push the pedal an inch and I got a nice firm pedal. Where I've got like 3 or 4 inches of travel with the Bugeye.
So Bob Abbott, any experience you have as it relates to .5 with Bugeyes and getting a good pedal?
No, sorry, but I haven't run into that specifically.
Okay. How about you, Bob? You anything auto farm?
No, I can't say. We use .5 all the time, and once in a while you'll get a squishy pedal, but generally leaving it sit for a couple of days and then carefully bleeding it will get rid of it. It tends to bubble.
Describe carefully bleeding.
Did you hear that, Bob? What does carefully bleeding mean?
Say carefully, like gently bleeding it. Don't agitate the fluid. You know, you got to.
Don't pump, and hold. What are you saying?
No, do not pump, and hold.
No.
Doing it with 2 people. Let the fluid rest for a while. Have the undercar guy open the bleed screw and then slowly push the pedal down and close the bleed screw. And slowly let the pedal up. No pump. You'll agitate air in there and you'll force it into teeny little bubbles that'll take weeks to work their way through the system.
I use the Mighty Vac. I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of small bubbles.
That's
Maybe you
probably
have a leak.
somewhere the Mighty Vac is leaking on the bleed screw.
It's true, yes.
It's been undone too far and the air is seeping by there. I have terrible luck with Mighty Vacs just for that reason.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to open the screw and still have a tight fit that won't allow air to seep past.
All right, I guess I'm back to getting under there and bleeding again and doing it that way. Try carefully bleeding.
Say, actually go in for.
Has anyone ever jacked up the front of the car, taken the reservoir cap off, and just let it sit for a few days to get the air out of the line? Or is that possible? Where you just jack it up in the front and let gravity kind of work its way out?
This all goes to a T-fitting that has a brake light switch on the right front fender well. So I don't know. You'd have to I guess that's a little bit that would be, I guess the master cylinder would be the highest point. You're talking about just gravity bleeding it.
Yeah.
And it's worth a shot. Not getting anywhere the way I'm going, so.
We've also found from time to time, when you're talking about having have to push the pedal very hard to get the brake lights to come on. Sometimes you can get air captured in that teeth fitting where the brake light switch is.
Yeah.
And the only way we've been able to get that out consistently is to crack the sender unit and let the air bleed out right there. Open that up a little bit and push the pedal. It's messy, and unfortunately, but if you're using .5 anyhow, it's not going to make any difference. You're not going to ruin your paint.
Right. Actually, I actually mentioned that to Peter the other day when I was at his place, that I was wondering if that could be a case that you've got a bubble in there because I just changed the switch. I'm on my third switch. I got down.
It happened before.
Okay, I think that's going to be my first thing I do, and then crack that. Have somebody holding a little bit of pressure on the pedal, and see if I can get flow out of that. Then tighten it back up. Okay, I got some things to try anyway. I will try. I did have somebody helping me. I won't mention anybody's name, Peter, but he was helping me. I
wasn't there. You said your neighbor was helping you.
No. I had someone else that we all know, you and I.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And he was pumping like
too hard.
Yeah, so it's possible we got tiny little bubbles in there. And then no, my neighbor, he'll just do what I ask him to.
There you go.
Right,
just like Pat.
Thanks, everybody. What's that?
Just like Pat. Does whatever you tell her to do, right?
There you go. No. Pat, have you? Well, thanks, everybody. I've got somewhere to go now, other than what I've been trying, and I'll let everybody know how it works out. Thank you.
Right.
What's the name of the brake fluid you use?
He's using silicone .5.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It is a silicone or not a silicone?
It is.
Silicone and what?
.5.
Yeah, it's a dot with a numeral 5.
No,
DOT. DOT 5.
DOT 5. Silicone .5.
Well, all .5 brake fluid is silicone based.
One thing everybody should be aware of, they have a 5.1, I think it is, that is not silicone.
Oh.
And twice when I was doing the Spitfire, I went to I went to an AutoZone and I forget where else it was. And they didn't have the DOT 5. And the guys behind the counter tried to give me the DOT 5.1. And it is not compatible.
Alden, if you don't already have silicone brake fluid in your car, you don't want to put .5 silicone in your dealer.
Right. You don't want to mix them.
You can't mix them.
Is all new, and you don't want to mix the 5.1 with the 5 either.
Yeah.
That's my point.
How do I know if I've never done this myself, and I don't know what my mechanic uses. I can ask
him.
But how do you know? How can you tell if you don't know? Is there any? Can you look at it and see?
If you put it on your paint bubbles up. You know it's not .5.
Well, put it on the hood and see how it works, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Alden, silicon pot fluid is purple. Open up the reservoir, and if it's purple in there, it's silicone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Purple.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, that was my experience with 2 different auto supplies trying to give me the wrong stuff, and that wouldn't have worked out well.
Not at all. Yeah.
No, that's true.
Most people don't know that the 5.1 is not silicon. They just think it's silicon fluid, as you experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing you knew what you were doing.
I think I read the bottle. I think I read it and it said it's not silicone based. I said, well, wait a minute. Then I did a little bit of research on it and found out it definitely was not silicone based.
Yep.
Okay,
Any
now I
other-
got something.
Any other questions? Yeah, and Aaron, if you want a hand, let me know. Be happy to help
I
you
will.
out.
I will. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Having your wife help you bleed the brakes is the number one cause of divorce in the United States.
See, we're not married, Rick. We're not married.
Yeah, well, okay. It's not relationships.
We're what we call living together apart. Behind me is my clock. I'm at my house and Pat's at her house. So we do a few nights a week and we're good. But I don't trust me. I was married for 44 years and I understand.
Okay. So
everyone.
Thanks, Ernie. Walter, are you still on the call? Walter, you had a question about you. Walter, you got your phone on mute. There you go.
Okay,
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. So you've got a Bugeye you've had for 30 years, and you're using you got steel wheel hubs on it, but you've used the aftermarket wire wheel conversion. Is that
No, what
okay?
I've never had it. I'd never really paid much attention to it, but I bought the car with the wire wheels on it, and it's a Bugeye.
Right.
And apparently somewhere along the line, one of the owners prior to me put wires on it. And I
So
have
do you
no
have
idea.
do you have wire wheel axles?
No, I have.
Okay, so you have steel wheel with a wire wheel conversion.
Yes. But whether I took it apart to try to find a part number to see if it was some sort of a legitimate thing, but I can't tell. And the problem that I detected I was trying to find out where this little bit of a noise I'm getting is.
So do your wire wheels sit proud from the rear bodywork by half an inch or so?
No.
Okay. Do you have what size tires do you have on the car, Walter?
Oh, I think they're 155s, maybe.
Okay. Because generally, for those conversion, I mean, the best thing is to have true wire wheel axles in the rear. And that conversion, if you were to talk to David Silverclight at Bugeye Guy, he would tell you never run those. Now, obviously, you've been running for 30 years, so but I know he highly does not recommend those. But so I guess I'm wondering, is that an issue? Do you think that the wheels are spinning on the hubs?
Well, what I discovered was, and then trying to look at it, is that when they put the hub extensions on,
yeah,
I don't believe they got it to fully seat because somebody had taken a grinder and ground the nuts and the bolts down to get it to fit. So
and that was 30 years ago that was done?
Oh, it was probably 35 years ago.
Okay. Well,
prior to my ownership.
Catch you, Walter. Okay.
But
so how are the splines?
Splines are fine.
So they're sharp. They're not rounded off at all.
They're sharp.
Okay.
Yeah, and
because I mean that is one of the things you can see is that if the splines get rounded off, the wheel can be slipping right there on the hub.
Yeah. Well, in trying to figure out what's going on, I found out that there was a different part number for the inner bearing race, the carrier.
Okay.
And I put it down and I was trying to determine whether there was if I were to just change the carrier housing or the carrier hub, if that's what is different, or if in fact the outer axle housing is actually shorter. I've not found anybody that knows.
What kind of noise are you getting?
It's kind of a creak, and it doesn't happen all the time. Only like if I back out of the garage with it and I turn to the right to go down the driveway, I'll get a little bit of a creaking noise, and then it clears up. And if I stop and take off again, I don't get it. I don't get it.
But but so this is something that's happened, again, you've owned this and you've had the same setup for 35 years.
Yeah, but I don't drive it a lot. I drive my big Healy most of the time.
So do you drive the car, like 100 miles a year, 500 miles a year?
Probably 100 miles a year.
Okay.
Maybe 150. So.
Okay.
It doesn't
sound
get
like it'd be a bearing.
a bearing.
It doesn't sound like it would be a bearing noise.
No, it doesn't. I don't believe it is.
Okay.
It's just when you
Wire
back
wheel.
the car up.
That bad wire wheels will creak. I think everything, inboard from that adapter should be your standard steel wheel bearings and everything else. That adapter just gets bolted on, and they do make. I think they make shorter studs, and they make a shallow nut, so that when you bolt them on, everything's flush, and then the wire wheel goes on. But creaking, I would guess would be a wire wheel.
Well, what I was discovering is that the axles are for a wire wheel, proper wire wheel setup, are an inch shorter than the steel wheels.
Yep. That's why I asked you if your wheels sit proud, if they sit out further.
Well, it wouldn't make any difference because no, they don't.
I think when you take that conversion unit on there and bolt it on to the existing, what would be for a steel wheel car, it sits out generally half an inch wider than a true wire wheel axle.
Okay.
So but again, you've been living, or not living, you've had this for 35 years. So obviously there's a lot more right than there is wrong here. There's something that's new going. But I guess, so are the wire wheels 35 years old? Or have you replaced any of them along the way?
I've replaced 2 of them over the early, probably 30 years ago. Yeah, they're probably 35 years old.
Okay. And how old are the tires?
Oh, they've been on about 10 years.
Okay.
I've got to change them out too.
Yeah.
So my real question is, because of the fact that the axles are different size on the wire wheel versus the steel wheel, does anyone know if the actual axle housing, the casting, is shorter for the wire wheels, or is it the bearing carrier they made up the difference in? Because obviously there's a half-inch problem on each side. If I were to replace the steel wheel axles with a wire wheel axle, I wouldn't be getting a full contact at the differential. They'd be too short. If the housing is the problem.
I did the conversion by pressing out the wire wheel axle from the hub. I'd say probably about a half an inch. And that will give you that'll put the axle that's into the differential to make full contact in the differential. And I've had that for over 30 years, and I've autocrossed it, never had a problem with it. I don't know. I'm not sure why you think that's going to solve your problem, though. Other than to getting rid of the adapters. And then
well, I'm not sure that would solve my problem. I'm concerned that I may have a real weird setup that won't last, because my understanding is the early the early axles, the early steel wheel axles were quite weak.
Well, that's a different problem entirely. I mean, that's
Right.
Well, that's
that
right,
means
but I was contemplating changing them. That's why.
So do you know, okay, so you don't have hardened steel act, do you have a 948 in this or an upgraded engine?
The 948, but I was going to upgrade it,
Okay,
which has caused me all these questions.
okay, yeah. I mean, you know, what I hear also is that, you know, the better axles for sprites are the ones that have the interior groove around that, and that's supposed to be a hardened steel axle. I've never broken an axle on a sprite, and I drive my sprites very hard, probably not as hard as Rick does, but I've got the hardened steel axles in all three of them, and they all have 1275s. So, and I do have a bunch of non-hardened steel axles that are sitting in my garage or sitting in my shop. But I was always told when you go to 1275s, you should put a hardened steel axle in. If it's a 948, it shouldn't be a problem.
I broke a 948 in high school with a 948 and a steel wheels, and I was just taking off moderately from a stop sign. After a while, they break. It's pretty common. I know one guy used to carry one with him all the time.
Well, I broke in my 100. You know, that's a spiral bevel axle. It's a BN1, and I 1 mile an hour I was going in first gear, and I was at a stop sign, went forward and going 1 mile an hour, and it snapped, and it broke right at the hub, and had to get a magnet to get the in part of the shaft out of there, and so I have a couple sets of pairs of spiral bevel axles in my shop just as a backup and carry them with me whenever I travel.
So Walter, is what you're trying to do now is put the wire wheel axle shafts?
Well, I was contemplating doing that.
Okay. Well, first,
until I took it apart and found out what I had.
Well, it's not particularly difficult. What you have to do once you get assuming you get a wire wheel axle shaft in good condition, there's a plug if you look inside the hub, there's a plug in there, a steel plug, and you have to use an air chisel or something to get it out of there. And they actually sell replacement plugs in Moss. And then you use a press.
Richard, every time you come on, you get all that echo. So maybe if you have something you want to say, Richard, say it in the chat. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so you take out that plug and then you use a press to press out the axle. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it was about a half an inch, but I'm sorry to say it's been 35 years since I did it. And I'm, like I said, what did I have for breakfast this morning? But but it's not a difficult job and it'll work. You also, I believe that the nuts that secure it have to be a little bit more narrow than the standard steel wheel ones, which is probably similar to what happened when they put the hub extension. I don't have any experience with hub extensions, and frankly didn't even know they were available. But I'm not. I'm still.
I have no idea. These could have been from a Spitfire. They could have been from anything back then. I have no idea where they came from.
I don't know how you. I mean, you can't just take the hub of a Sprite wire wheel and bolt it onto a steel wheel axle. It just doesn't work. There's that kind of the end of the steel axle is kind of got a hump in it in the center, and that'll keep you from putting just the axle on there. It might have been a conversion of some kind, but I'm not aware of one that was ever sold. But you've got one, so it happens.
It exists. So are you thinking of going to a 1098 or a 1275, Walter?
1275.
Okay. Do you have a motor?
Mm-hmm.
Great, good. Well, that,
Well,
That's
I
been
it's
sitting
made,
around quite a
with-
few years too.
With the 1275, if you drive it at all hard, you'll definitely snap that 948 axle.
Okay. Well, I guess I have some researching to do, but nobody knows about whether the half-inch difference on each side is because of the casting of the housing or whether it's because of
Not
the,
in the hot, well, the axle, the rear axle, the entire axle assembly, including the brakes, et cetera, is a different size between a Bugeye and a Mark II or Mark III or wire wheel car. They're not the
It
same.
is.
So, and I forget which,
They're not the same, you said?
they are not.
Okay.
as I understand, with the conversion, with that adapter on there, they sit out half an inch wider on both the right and left side.
Probably.
That's my understanding, Walter. And
But
I
I
know
think-
other people, we had that club member, that we worked on his car last year and redid the drivetrain and that and put new clutch and everything and that's what we had on his. And his tires sat proud against the rear wheels, against the rear fenders, excuse me, by half an inch. They stick out further than a regular wire wheel full car does.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Walter?
No, that's fine. That'll give me something to work on here.
Sounds good.
I've got some
Okay.
decisions. I've got some decisions to make.
Yep. Hi, Bob. So Bob Easterbrooks, he's in the middle of working on a restoration. Mark LeBlanc is restoring his BT7 for him, and so Bob has some questions. He's looking for a little before he gets into the rebuild of the motor, looking for some possible upgrades in performance. Anything else,
Yeah.
Bob, you want to add to that?
That'd probably be enough for tonight. Just getting some sense of what you guys have done. I haven't done anything with it yet. It's going to be all apart. You've got to sleeve it, and I want to increase the power curve on it. I still want it to be drivable. What I'd like was, now that I've got it apart, I just want to give it a little bit more muscle. So I wanted
I've
to
got
know
a
what
few
you guys.
suggestions.
Yes, sir.
Ford V8.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Exactly.
I was waiting for that.
So I saw in your email you asked about, tri-power. I know Bob Britton, I see you're on the call, and I believe you've gone to tri-power on your BJ7. Have you noticed a difference, Bob Britton, in your BJ7 since you put tri-carbs on it? You broke up, Bob.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I said absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't really notice any power difference between the 175 HS6s
Yeah.
and the HS4 triples. Matter of fact, I think my car was faster with the the double carburetors.
All right. Okay.
But they sure look good.
Does Linda like them, Bob? I hope.
Oh, well, I have to deal with her Strombergs, which are a pain in the ass. I'll tell you,
I'm not
you work on
necessarily,
you work on SU carburetors for 30 years, and then you start working on Strombergs, and they're like totally different. I'm glad we
they?
don't have them on our cars.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I don't. I mean,
with the,
if you really want power, you should put triple HS6s on there. Probably, I think that's what is recommended. And you got to, of course, get a higher lift cam and more duration and all that stuff. So it's quite involved. But
lighter flywheel, all that.
Oh yeah, lighter flywheel, and just be careful chasing all that stuff.
you can spend a lot of money and not necessarily really gain that much
Okay.
of a driving experience unless you really plan to go racing.
Yeah, I'm
or
absolutely
rallying.
not going to do that. Nope.
Yeah, I
No.
mean, that's what I did 20 something years ago, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it now.
Interesting. So you'd
Well,
stay
you
with
put the tricarbs on more recently than that, Bob, right?
Yeah, I put, well, it's been over 10 years.
Has it
since
really?
I put
Okay.
yeah, time
Okay.
flies.
Yeah.
So you're not impressed with that?
Like I said, I did it more for the looks
Yeah. Yep.
than I did it for the power.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of research on it too, when I was before, because I was thinking of using HS6s, but everyone I talked to that did it said, oh yeah, you got to put HS6s on it. But when I talked to the carburetor guys that really knew carburetors, they told me to stick to the HS4s because the engine really, and he said, unless you're running that engine at 5,000 RPMs all the time,
yeah,
the added airflow of triple HS6s does not contribute anything to it. You get plenty of airflow out of three HS4s. The engine can only consume so many cubic feet a minute of air. So that's another thing I kind of, so I kept with the HS4s.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
I mean,
I'm not, I'm not sold on threes. I see. The first thing I thought of was it's 1/3 more problems to try and keep the foolish things tuned.
I once you set them up, they're fine. I have not really found a problem with tuning triple carbs. And once
but
you
you
set
haven't
them
seen
up,
a significant advantage in going to the triples over the fours, HS4s.
No, I haven't, not in power, because your airflow, again, you're getting back into airflow. The airflow on the HS6s is it's either a little bit more or a little less than three triples.
Okay.
So you're not gaining any more.
Yeah, the sum is okay.
Airflow into the engine. So I'm sure other people would, you do it, but before you start chasing that horse, you do a lot of research on it.
Okay.
I guess the other question is, what about BJ8 carburetors on there upgrading from what's on a BG7?
Yeah.
Yeah, BG7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you do that, just make sure you at least put a BJ8 cam in, or even a higher street cam.
Yep. Okay.
I did that.
The one thing you're going to do, and
Go ahead, Bruce.
one thing I did, which I regret now, is my cam is so loppy it doesn't idle well.
Yeah.
At 900 RPMs or 800, it's lum. I mean, I was actually Mark's shop the other day and listened to I listened to him start Dave Bevan's car, which has a total rebuild. That thing run as smooth as can be.
Yeah.
I cannot get my car to idle that smoothly with the triples and a high lift cam that I put in it years ago.
Okay.
Bruce Olson, did you have something you were going to say?
Yeah, I went that road, Peter. I went with the HD8s. I've got a BJ7, and I went with a fast flow inlet manifold that you can get from AH Bears, or Moss, I think, charges a lot more for it. But and so I'm still rebuilding the car. I've run in the engine, but I haven't run it on the road yet, so I don't know how it's going to work. It seems to run fine, but we'll see once I get it on the road. But the only thing I would say about that is it does move the carbs and the air cleaner out. And I have a dual frame, and I think I discussed this several months ago that
I remember that
clearances are tight with moving the carbs up and stuff. So
okay,
I think that's going to work, but it's tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bob Easterbrook, I just, so in that blue Sprite I have that I built for Lucas.
Yeah.
I got a mile street cam in that, light and flywheel and all that stuff. And it's lumpy, as Bob mentioned, it's lumpy as hell. Cindy hates riding in that car. She despises it. And so I just be cognizant of that. Now I realize Sprites and big Heelys are entirely different, but
but lumpy is lumpy. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's not sitting at a stop sign or at a light. You think it's going to die, and then it's lumpy as hell.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right.
In retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done it again. I would have just stayed street.
Okay.
So Bob, you're restoring a BT7, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Where are you located?
In Middleborough, Mass.
Yeah. So, you're welcome. If you have any questions about the BT7, I'm happy to help you with that.
Rich is in Medfield.
Oh, okay.
So close by. I also got a bunch of extra parts left over if you're looking for anything.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to know. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, that's very good.
Rob Moore, any more updates from you in Vermont and what's going on with your BT7?
You back to me? Oh, I'm sorry.
Rob Moore.
Unfortunately, Peter, too much family stuff going on lately, so I haven't been able to get back at it.
Well, that's much more important.
It is, but it does get a little frustrating. But we'll get
you
there.
You haven't been able to start the car yet, right? You're still at that stage.
I haven't even, since I blew the bird seed out that the mice had put into my exhaust system. I haven't turned a wrench on it yet.
Yep, I hear you.
Soon, I hope.
Okay, well, that's good. So does anyone else have any questions? That's all the ones that people submitted in advance we've gone through. Anyone else have a question? Oh, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering about, sorry about the dogs there. Hang on a second.
No problems.
I was wondering
Look,
about,
he's got his car right there in the background, sitting on the lift.
Yeah, right.
Sitting in your shop and everything.
Yeah. I had a question about insulating.
You just froze, Bruce.
On the floorboard. Oh, I froze. Okay.
But you just can't. So heat insulation.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I was planning on using a Dynamat. I had some of it, and then I talked to Mark LeBlanc, and he said don't use that. That it gets air pockets underneath, and water gets in there between, and you can't get the water out, and it ends up rusting out the floorboards. So I was wondering. He said he uses like a closed cell foam product, and I was wondering. I'd heard of the Cool Mat product, which sounds good, but it's pretty expensive. But I was wondering if anybody else had used what people have used to, cut the heat down as opposed to just the felt that goes under there,
So Bob Britton is what's, I know you've worked with Mark a little bit, Bob Britton. Any thoughts you've got in that regard? You're on
Well,
mute.
I'll tell you, the best thing to do is first get your transmission cover insulated as much as possible. And I have mine both Dynamat on the underside of it.
I see.
And I have it, which is good. Yeah, that's where you're going to notice most of the heat. It's coming out of that transmission tunnel. So you really want to try to get that. I don't care which product you use. The Cool Mat. I looked at Cool Mat too, but it's like 2 or 3 times as expensive as the other stuff. Now, whether it's that much better, I have no idea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just make sure you get the transmission. Mark's opinion is, a lot of people put that Dynamat down and they'll put it down on their floors. And, Mark's concern, because I remember him telling me the same thing, is I don't care. These Heelys leak. You get caught out in rain, you're going to get water under your carpeting. And if that water works under that mat and you don't know it, that's where you can potentially get rust.
Mhm.
So I think that's why Mark's against it. But I know people, I've seen pictures of people where they've completely covered their entire inside of their, the inside of their car in that stuff. And, floors, sidewalls, you should put some up against the firewall if you can on the inside before you put the carpeting in, because that's another thing to get heat. But more importantly is make sure every hole that goes through that firewall is plugged.
Yep.
Don't rely on the little rubber gum, just the grommets. I actually took, in his other areas, there's nooks and crannies way up in the corners where the flanges of the body comes together. I've actually sprayed foam, expanding foam up in there to keep the heat out. You want to keep that heat flow out of the engine, from the engine compartment coming into the cockpit as much as possible.
But you wouldn't use grommets, Bob, for you wouldn't use a grommet for plugging any of those holes you have in your firewall?
Oh, I use the rubber grommet, but there's still space between the grommet and the wire going through there,
But what about
So-
a rubber plug? So if you got a hole in your
Oh,
firewall.
well, if you have a hole with nothing going through it, you put a rubber plug in it. Yeah, I have a few of those too. But you really want to pay attention to seal as much as you can.
Right.
I've been chasing the heat in my car for 30 years, and when all said and done, they still are hot.
What works to
I was
as a
gonna ask-
firewall is to take a drop light in the engine compartment, and shine it near the firewall, and then when you get in the car, you can see where the light's shining through, and that's where the air comes through. So that helps a lot when you're insulating.
But you don't have any body panels on your car right now, Bruce, right? Bruce, you have no body panels on your car?
No.
Yep. It's
No.
right. Well, now's the time to do everything. Bruce, do you have the wiring harness in?
Bob, did you do
Bruce, you keep freezing.
okay.
Bruce, maybe turn your video off, and maybe you're just audio. That may be better.
Okay.
Not that we don't want to see you, but that may help.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Now, okay.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I was just wondering if using the tar paper under there under the firewall inside.
So we lost you quite a bit. So you're asking about tar paper underneath the any sort of insulation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did
anyone have any experience?
People do
Bob Ewell, I
different
know you
things
do
in the
complete
tar paper.
restorations of cars. Bob Ewell, any recommendations you have for sealing these cars up?
Well, I know on the on the firewall above the heater plenum, originally they had some sort of black tar cardboardy sheet in there. We don't put that back in. We take a piece of what do they call it? Duct wrap, which is aluminum foil with air bubbles in between it, and cut it to be a tight fit and shove it into that area, and don't put any holes in it. And as you feed your wires through from the engine bay, let them poke the hole in that foam, and that helps an awful lot.
I've used Thermatech heat insulation material underneath the transmission cover, on top of the transmission cover, and then just put carpeting over top of that. But that's sort of like what Bob's describing. It's aluminum on one side and it's bubble on the other.
Yeah.
And it seems to work pretty well. I haven't noticed any rusting, but I did replace floorboards when I first started, repairing the car. But I haven't noticed any issues with that at all. I didn't cover the floor entirely. I just covered the transmission with that, and it seemed to help somewhat.
We
You
always
got a BT7 too,
we
Mike?
always
Is that right?
The tunnel on the inside and the outside, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And we also use that 2-inch wide aluminum tape that they use to wrap ductwork with, and we put that all around the edge of the transmission tunnel, and that seals the gap completely between it and the floor.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Whatever you do, you just want to make sure that it doesn't trap water. And if you do get water in the car, you can pull up the carpeting out to let things dry, or don't drive your car in the rain.
Right.
Yeah, make sure that you carpet so you can take them out. Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. Other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Peter, I just have a comment. Last month, there was somebody asked about the fuel sender from AH Spares, the new one.
Yeah.
And I installed it. I'm pretty happy with it so far.
Great.
It's pretty accurate when it gets down low. Right now, when the tank is pretty full, it doesn't seem to change much, but it's very steady, and so far so good.
So it's better than what you had with the original system?
Definitely better, yeah.
Okay. And you're doing this in your 100, so it's easy to get to.
Yep.
A lot easier than a Sprite.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to drop the tank. Well, that's good. Great. Thanks, Ted.
All right.
Other questions or comments?
I get a question for Bob Easterbrooks.
Yes, sir.
Are you related to Dr. Easterbrooks from Middleborough?
We're related to everybody. We started out as it's Easterbrooks, Estabrook, Brooks, and there's another variation of it also. We ended up in Newport, and actually what happened was during the Revolutionary War, they were all Tories. They screwed. They all went to England and or Prince Edward Island, and then after the war, they all sort of meandered back down. So yeah, we're all related. There was
Rick from Middleborough, Bob.
I
Rick
grew up
from
in Middleborough.
Yeah, and there was a fella actually up in Estabrook that had a restaurant up in East Bridgewater, and for a while there, I moved up here in '83, and for a while we would all meet, have breakfast, and everybody would switch mail back and forth for a while. So yeah, we're related way back. Yeah.
Okay.
Been around.
Folks have anything else? Okay. I did send out an email, so Ken wasn't able to be on the call today, but he's planning a trip to the Saratoga Auto Museum on September 30th. So I did send an email out regarding that. He's going to give us some details as it relates to that, but they got the James Bond cars up there. So if someone's interested in that, get a hold of Ken on that, and he'd be interested in getting a group going out for that. So then we've got Summit coming up on the 24th of September. So down in Mystic for that. And then I'm going to be at the Audrain Concourse on October 2nd, and I'm part of a concourse judging team. We got 15 British cars that we're going to be part of. So looking forward to that. So hopefully we'll have good weather October 1st down in Newport. So, well, thank you guys all for your questions and comments. Again, we do this the second Monday of every month, and look forward to that. So, Mike, any recommendations for this call moving forward? Since you've, I think, first time you've joined us.
Yes, I think I'd like to join your group if I could be invited to become a member.
Sure. I'll send you some information on that, Mike.
Thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and thank you. So, Well, again, hope everyone have a great, hopefully the weather's going to improve and this hurricane that's heading towards New England's not going to be too bad. And so, Bob, you're going to, Bob Britton, you're going up to British Invasion, I assume? Bob Britton, you going to British
yeah.
Invasion? Yep.
Yep.
Good. I know there's a big contingent from BMC New England going up.
Yeah,
Rick
yeah.
Crosby and stuff. They're going up for a week.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there'll be a few Austin-Healey people up there I've heard from that are coming up, and we'll see. Just hopefully we don't get too much remnants from the hurricane.
Right. Exactly.
As it sweeps by New England.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. So, okay. Well, thank you all. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next month, or hopefully see you later this month in Mystic. So, thank you all.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks,
Thank-
everybody.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Peter.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome. Thank you.